What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Undiscovered Games video podcast, where we take a look at the lesser-known board games of the world and share those with you. For episode 51 today, we're going way back to 1998 with a very undiscovered game. This one is called Cheops. Now, this is a commodity speculation type of a game where you're going to be building up this pyramid and collecting treasures from it, and those treasures come in 6 colors. You're trying to invest in the best paying colors by the end of the game. However, the players directly affect the payout value of those colors, and there are some interesting twists and turns. The payouts are different every game, and even though it's a very subtle game, it's very interactive and very dynamic. The color balances are always shifting. You have to weigh when to destroy the value of your opponent's colors or when to build up the value of your own colors and then protect that value. Sometimes you can join in with an opponent and save the same colors and create a shared interest there. So it's just always changing. You have to keep an eye on what everybody else is doing, and I just find this game to be quite fascinating, especially at 3 players. And I want to draw attention to that player count right up front here, because to me, this game came to life when I first played it at 3 players. So if you've never tried this at 3, I highly recommend that, and I'll talk more about that stuff later in the video when I review the game. But first, I want to show you how to play Cheops. It's very easy to learn and teach. Just keep in mind, I'm using an English translation of the rules. This game was only ever released in German, so if you notice anything that looks incorrect, just comment below and I will be happy to take a look at it. Any rules clarifications or mistakes I might have made will be in the video description below, so click that to learn more, and make sure you are subscribed right here on YouTube at undiscovered_games to learn more about lesser known board games just like this. Alright, let's take a look at how to play Cheops. We're going to set up a 3-player game because that's my favorite player count, but it's worth noting the gameplay and the setup are the same no matter how many players are playing the game. To start, you're going to find these tablets. They have a number on the back, either 1, 2, or 3. So separate these by their number, and then you're going to mix each stack separately face down without looking. Now take 2 tablets from each stack, so you'll have 2 1s, 2 2s, and 2 3s, and put the remaining tablets back in the box. You will not need those. So now you have 6 tablets. You're going to mix these all together face down, and put one randomly on each space above the pyramid like this. Find these colorful scarab tokens. They look like little jelly beans. Take one of each color and place it on the matching space above each tablet. So each tablet tracks the value of that color throughout the game. The rest of these scarabs can be shuffled in a bag or a box lid, and you place one randomly on every space of the pyramid like this. Do not place any tokens on these gray sections here. We're going to do that next. So find these 12 gray tiles and mix them face down. Place one randomly on each matching space of the pyramid. Return the other 6 to the box without looking at them. Now the rules say to keep these face down on the pyramid, so we'll keep these down for the video, but it's worth noting we play with these tiles face up so everybody can see what they are and there are no surprises. You can try it both ways and see which one you like the best. I just think the game works a little better when these are all visible to everybody, but again, the rules say to keep them face down, so that's what we'll do for the video. Now there are 2 types of these beige tiles. We have the family members and then we have the neighbors. There are only 4 of these neighbor tiles. They look like this. Place these next to the game board. Now you're going to go through the family member tiles and find one of each family member and give those to each player to start the game. So every player starts with the same 4 tiles, one of each family member. The rest of these are going to mix together and form 3 approximately equal stacks. You're supposed to line these up front to back, so you can only draw tiles from the frontmost stack throughout the game. Once this first stack gets emptied out, then you can draw from the second stack. Once the second stack is emptied out, then you can draw from the third stack. It's kind of a weird little rule they throw in there, but I'll cover that more in a minute. Now take the money cards. You have 5s and 10s. Very simple to make change in this game, which is a plus. Place these next to the board, and now you're ready to play. The game is always clockwise around the table, so after you determine a start player, players are going to just take their turns one at a time going around the table. Your turn is very simple. The first thing you do is place a family member onto the pyramid. These are like bricks that build the pyramid up. Wherever you place that brick, you take the scarab off. Now you have to decide right now, do you want to sell that scarab for instant money or keep the scarab for money at the end of the game? Whatever you decide, at the end of your turn, you can refill back up to a hand of 4 tiles, and then the next player in clockwise order takes their turn. They place a brick, take a scarab, and then either sell it or keep it. That's the basic turn structure, but let's go into more detail because there's a lot more to it than that. So like I said, the first step of your turn is you add 1 brick to the pyramid. You choose any one of your 4 family member tiles and place it on the pyramid. You must build this pyramid from the ground up. So in order to place a brick on a higher row, that brick must be supported by 2 bricks directly underneath of it. So I cannot place a brick here, for example, until there's a brick here and here. So to start the game, you must start on that bottom row, but then if you get 2 bricks next to each other, you can start building upward even before that bottom row is completely full. Another important rule for placing bricks is the same family members cannot be directly adjacent anywhere on the pyramid. So if this lady is right here, I could not place this brick here, here, or here. I could place her over here, however, because she's not touching this one. So anywhere on the pyramid, this applies. Top, down, left, right. You can never have 2 of these same tiles directly touching. And finally, this kind of goes without saying, but each space of the pyramid can only hold 1 brick tile. So once there's a brick there, I can't place another brick on that same space. And that's all the rules for placing bricks. Now let's talk about the scarabs, because wherever you place a brick, you're going to remove that scarab, and then you have to decide if you want to keep it or sell it. If you decide to keep it, it's very simple. It just stays in front of you until the end of the game. If you decide to sell it, however, you're going to get paid from the bank a flat rate. Most of the game, that flat rate is $10, which is showing right here at the top of the pyramid. And sometimes this value can change as a result of these special gray tiles, which I have not talked about yet, so I'll get into that later. So just know that if you decide to sell, you just take $10 from the bank, and then you take your scarab token and place it on the matching price tablet. Remember, each tablet has a color associated with it. Let me just show you an example. This is much easier to see. So let's say it's my turn. It's a little later in the game here. First, I'm going to place this brick onto the pyramid and take this red scarab. Now with this scarab, I would like to sell it to the bank. First, I'm going to look up at the market price, which is $10. I take that $10 from the bank, and now I take my red scarab and place it on the red price tablet up here. I have to cover up the topmost available number that's showing. So these have numbers that go from top to bottom, and they kind of make like a zigzag pattern. So as you sell these scarabs to the bank, they fill in from the top to the bottom like this. So this one has to cover up this number. The reason this is important is because when the game ends, the topmost visible number on each of these tablets is going to be the end value for whoever kept the scarabs. So it's really interesting because when you sell the scarabs, you're getting this flat market value of $10. But then you're directly affecting the future value of that color. So in my example, I covered up this number 20, making the 0 the topmost number on the tablet. So if the game ended right now, everybody who saved red scarabs would get 0 for them. But if the game continues and another player sells red to the bank, then they'll cover up the 0. And now if the game ends, everybody's reds that they saved are worth $20 each. And so on down the tablet. All these tablets have different payouts on them, and some of them have special payouts, which I'll cover later in the video. It's also worth noting you can never cover up the last number on a tablet. So if it's all the way full except that last number, you cannot sell that color to the bank. You must keep it. So anyway, let's talk about finishing out your turn. So after you either sell or keep the scarab, now you are allowed to refill your hand of tiles back up to 4. You must draw the top tile from the frontmost stack. After this stack gets depleted, then you draw from this stack. When this stack is depleted, then you draw from this stack. Now this is where the rules translation gets a little weird. There's some debate about this online, but the way I understand the rule is you are not required to refill your hand back up to 4. You could just let it sit at 3. And then at the start of your next turn, you would only have 3 tiles to work with. But then at the end of that turn, you could refill up to your maximum of 4. So maybe you just want to bide your time and hope a different family member becomes available or something like that. But again, that's a very weird little wrinkle in the rules, so I wouldn't worry too much about that. Most of the time, you're just going to refill back up to 4 at the end of your turn. It's also worth noting that if you cannot legally place any of your family members on the pyramid, you just lose your whole turn. So then you just have to wait till it's your turn again and hope there's a spot for one of your bricks next time. You are not allowed to voluntarily skip your turn though, so if you have a place to place one of your bricks, you must do that. And that brings me to these neighbor tiles. Remember, we set these out at the beginning of the game. There are 4 available. These are available for any of the players to purchase throughout the game. This is basically a bonus turn that you can buy, and you have to do this at the start of your turn. So if you want to buy one of these, at the beginning of your turn, you pay $20 to the bank. You take one of these neighbor bricks and place it out on the pyramid, following the normal placement rules. You take the scarab, you either keep it or sell it like usual, but then you must take your regular turn right away. So then you have to place one of your normal family member bricks out on the pyramid, and it's worth noting that if you do not have a legal place to place your family members, then you cannot buy the neighbor tile at the start of your turn. And it's worth noting you can only buy 1 neighbor tile per turn. Now we need to go over these special gray tiles which are placed out on the pyramid. You collect these gray tiles just like you collect a scarab. So whenever you place a brick out on one of these spaces, you take the gray tile. And these are laws that change the rules of the game slightly. There are 12 different laws. They all work a little bit differently, but they're very easy to understand. They're numbered 1 through 12 for easy reference, but I'm going to go over these real quick just because there's hardly any content about this game out on the internet. So I just want to do a full teach here. So like I said, these are numbered 1 through 12. Numbers 1 through 9 will happen immediately when you take them off the pyramid. Numbers 10, 11, and 12, you can use them right away or you can save them for later use. So let's look at what these do. Numbers 1 and 2 work exactly the same way. These will change the standard market rate when you sell to the bank. So remember, normally when you sell a scarab to the bank, you take that flat rate of $10. Well, if you get this tile, you place it up here, and now whenever a player sells to the bank, they get $5 instead of $10. Or this one makes that rate $15 instead of $10. Number 3 just gets placed somewhere out on the board to remind you that the game ends after 3 of these tablets get filled up. So a tablet is full when only the final number is showing. I haven't talked about the regular game end yet, but normally one of the ways the game can end is 2 tablets get filled up. Well, this prolongs that and makes it 3 tablets have to get filled up. Number 4 is pretty brutal. When you get this one, you place it under one of these tablets. And what that says is anybody who collects that color must sell it immediately to the bank. You are not allowed to keep that color anymore. Furthermore, if you place this under a tablet that's already full, then nobody can even keep that color anymore. You can't keep or sell it. The number 5 tile is kind of the opposite. When you get this one, you place it under one of these price tablets. And what that says is that color must be kept. So players cannot sell that color to the bank. They're forced to keep it. Let's look at the number 6 law tile. This one you place under one of these price tablets and it does nothing, but it does prevent other law tiles from being placed under this tablet because each tablet can only have one law tile underneath of it. The number 7 tile goes over top of any available number on any one of these price tablets. So you just take this, place it over top of that number, and now that's the new value showing on the price tablet. The number 8 law tile lets you remove any other law tile from the game. So you just put the 8 tile back in the box and you choose one of the laws that's out there and put it back in the box as well. You can take it off the game board or directly from another player if they haven't used theirs yet. So that one can also be pretty brutal. If you get the number 9 tile, you must immediately pay $25 to the bank. If you do that, you get to keep this tile and use it as any color at the end of the game. So it's like a wild of any one color. But to do that, you must immediately pay that $25. And if you don't want to pay or if you can't pay, then this just gets wasted and goes back in the box. If you get the number 10 law tile, this lets you sell one of your previously saved scarabs. Now you can use this tile right when you collect it, or you can save it and use it later in the game one time. Now you can only sell a scarab that you're legally allowed to sell. So if the price table is full, you can't sell it. Or if it has that number 5 law tile under it, you cannot sell it. But otherwise, this is just a way to sort of sell something that you originally decided to keep, but then you changed your mind. The number 11 law tile can be used right away, or you can save this one till later, and this lets you take any scarab from the pyramid. You still have to place one of your family member bricks on that space and take the scarab, but once you take the scarab, you sell it or keep it just like usual. The catch here is you have to obey the neighboring rules with the family tile that you place. However, there is nothing said in the rules about having to follow the building restrictions. So the way I read this, you could take a treasure from the top of the pyramid, even if only the first couple rows are built. It's also worth noting this number 11 law tile does not count as your main action. So you still get to take your turn as usual. This just gives you a bonus scarab. And finally, the number 12 law tile can also be used right away or kept for a later use, and this just lets you swap the positions of any two scarabs on the pyramid, or you can trade one scarab that you've kept with any one scarab on the pyramid. You just do a 1-to-1 swap and keep the new one. So those are the 12 law tiles. Those shake up the dynamics of the game so much. You never know which 6 are going to be in the game and where they're going to be on the pyramid. Once again, the rules say to put them face down, so when you collect them, it's a surprise. I like the game a little better with them face up. You can decide for yourself. So now the only thing left to talk about is the end of the game and scoring. When does this game end? Well, there are 3 possible ways the game could end. First of all, if the pyramid gets completely filled up with bricks and there's nothing left to take, the game ends immediately. Secondly, if no players at the table have a legal place to place their bricks, the game ends right there. So because of the adjacency rule, sometimes nobody can place a brick in the pyramid. That ends the game. And finally, as soon as any 2 of these price tablets gets completely full, that also ends the game right then and there. Again, a tablet is full when only the bottom number is left showing. And at this point, you just tally up your final score. You have to get paid for all the scarabs that you saved up throughout the game. The value of each color is determined by the price table at this time. So once again, each color has its own price table. You look at the topmost visible number, and that's how much each scarab is worth of that color. So you just calculate the value of all your scarabs, add that to any cash that you collected throughout the game, and that's your final score. Whoever has the highest score wins. There is no official tiebreaker in the rule book, so if you have any ideas for a tiebreaker, drop those in the comments below. But there is one more thing I need to cover in this tutorial, and that is the special scoring on some of these price tables, and this really shakes up the game, so this is important. Most of these price tables just have straight numbers, and whatever number is showing at the top, that's how much your scarabs are worth. But there are 2 other ways that these tables might score. Let's look at this one for example. If the game ended like this, the value of blue would normally be 15, but see how it has this little underlined 20 next to it. Whoever has the most blue scarabs at the table gets 20 per scarab, whereas the other players only get 15 per blue scarab. So if this price table is in the game, there's a little bonus incentive, to get a majority in this certain color. However, it's not always a bonus. Like this price table here gives fewer points to whoever had the majority. So if the game ended like this, whoever had the most red would only get 15 for their red, whereas the rest of the players would get 30 for each of their reds. And it's worth noting, if any players tie for having the most, then everybody just gets this regular size number here. Nobody gets the underlined number. Now I need to talk about this multiplier table here. It has like the times 5 and the times 10. The way this works, let's say the game ended like this for the green color. It's on the times 5. What you do in this case to determine the value of green, you add up all the greens that were collected by all the players. So you just look out at the table, count all the greens, and multiply that number by 5. So if I collected 2 greens, my opponent over here collected 1 green, and this player collected 3 greens, there are 6 greens at the table. That's 6 times 5. Every green scarab is worth 30. So this can really ramp up the scoring as well, especially if you end on that times 10, or maybe it ends on the 0. So these price tables are all over the place with their values, and that makes this game really exciting. I'll get into all that here in my review, but that concludes the tutorial section of the video. This game really isn't that hard to learn or teach. I just wanted to cover every rule in detail because there's just not any video content about this game, so I wanted to give you a one-stop shop with all the rules in one video. If there are any little rules clarifications or anything, I post all that in the video description below, and I also try to pin a comment, so check that out as you're watching. And if you have any questions, ask in the comments below. I'll be happy to answer those as soon as I can. So let's get into my rating and review of Cheops. I gotta say right up front, this is exactly the type of game that is meant for this YouTube channel right here. I mean, this is the epitome of an undiscovered game. It's from 1998. It was only released in German. It's by a game designer I've never heard of, known as Klaus Powell. This is his only game listed on Board Game Geek, and that just blows my mind. I mean, you have this really well-produced game from 1998. It looks really cool on the table. I'm a big fan of, the aesthetics here. The artwork looks great. These little jelly bean pieces are cool. But this game just has that old school gameplay where it's super simple rules, but the players drive the pace of the game. There is some cutthroat interaction on this shared board because of that adjacency adjacency rule. You can really block players from getting colors they need. You can see all the family member tokens that everybody has, so you can place certain family members so they can't come in and get certain colors. But there are ways around that. You can buy those bonus turns. You can get those special gray law tiles, which really shake up the game. But I think my favorite part of this game is how swingy all the values are on these price tables. I think it's so exciting to watch a color go from 0 to like 40 in one turn. Or if you get these multiplier tiles, I mean, this has a times 10 on it. Your colors might be worth 60 each this turn, and then if a player sells one, they tank the value to 0 on the next turn. I just think it's hilarious how they have these numbers set up on these tiles. To me, that makes the game. The players are constantly deciding the values of these colors, and you can really be mean in this game. I will say, you can look around. If somebody's storing up a bunch of one color, a lot of times it makes sense to get that color and sell it just to tank the value. But then you have to watch out for other players wanting to do that to you. It's kind of dangerous to save up a lot of one color. It gets pretty risky because the other players are going to look to, destroy that color. So if you do that, you can sort of lay your bricks out on the pyramid and prevent your opponents from getting certain colors. So you have to play offense and defense. It's such a good design, but I will say, this game shines at 3 players. I think that 3 is the sweet spot here. I really do. I played this with 4, and I really felt like there were times that it was just totally out of my control. I could not control enough aspects of the game because there were 3 other players doing stuff before it got back to me. Whereas at 3 players, I had a lot more chances to plan some little, clever maneuvers, like pathways to get to certain colors I needed in the pyramid. But that tension between everybody was still really high in the 3-player game. 2 players, I felt like was almost a little bit too predictable, where I could guess where my opponent was wanting to go. It's very obvious what colors they're trying to collect. You can still tank each other's values and try to hoard certain colors, but I'm just saying I felt the game come to life at 3 players. That's just been my personal experience, and all things considered, I give this a solid 9 out of 10. If it's at 3 players, that jumps up to a 9.5 out of 10, and the only reason it's not a 10 out of 10 at 3 players is because I think the game does run a tad too long for what it is. I feel like a game like this should not last more than 45 minutes. This should be about a 30 to 45 minute experience, but all of our 3-player games have lasted over 45 minutes, some upwards of an hour, and to me it's just a little bit too long for what it is. But again, that's a very minor gripe. I'm only taking off a half point for that. Another tiny gripe I have is I don't really like playing with these law tiles face down on the pyramid. The official rule is to keep them hidden, and then when you collect them, it's a surprise. I think the game is better if you just play with these face up, so everybody knows what's out there, everybody knows what's at stake, and you can plan according to what's out there. I think that makes the game better because these law tiles really shake up the game, and sometimes I'm not a big fan of how they shake up the game, especially if it's a surprise, because you have to take a whole turn gambling on what that's going to be. You place a brick to take that tile, and sometimes you can't even use it to your advantage. So I've been burned by those playing with them face down, and it kind of left a bad taste in my mouth. So once we played with them face up, I was sold that that was the better way to play. I even felt like the game was more tense with everybody knowing what was out there because players were definitely going for certain tiles at certain moments. So I think it improved the game. You can decide for yourself. All in all, it's an awesome game. I still recommend it at 3 players to get the full experience. 4 and 5 felt a little bit chaotic at times, a little bit too out of my control, but still a very cool game. And I think it's cool too how the pyramid just naturally increases the tension because as the pyramid gets narrower toward the top, there are fewer and fewer spaces to go for. The colors are closer together. It just pits the players against each other as the game builds. So it's a really cool game design from that point of view. I definitely wouldn't recommend spending a ton of money on this game. I mean, it's a very cool game. It's very solid, but I don't know that it's worth these crazy amounts that some of these rare out of print games sell for. So just keep that in mind. Hold out for a reasonably priced copy. You don't have to go rush out and spend a ton of money on this one, but it is a very solid game, especially if you like commodity speculation, and it's cool how it plays so well at the lower player counts. Have you ever played Cheops? Does this look like a game you would like to try? Let me know all all that good stuff in the comments below. Anyway, that'll do it for today's episode. Thank you so much to all of you who watched my episode 50. That was such a long video to put together. It took me forever. So all the positive feedback I got on that just means a lot to me. I really, really appreciate you taking the time to sit through and watch all of that and comment and just give me such awesome game recommendations. I could not run this channel without all of you supporting me on a regular basis, so thank you so much. If you want to help keep the channel alive, there is a digital tip jar in the description below. It's just a PayPal link. You can show your support. There's also super thanks here on YouTube if you want to help out that way, but I do not expect any of that. It's just there if you want to help motivate me to, continue releasing content on a regular basis. The biggest motivator is watching my subscribers go up. So if you know anybody who's not subscribed, tell them to click subscribe over here and check out the channel at undiscovered_games on YouTube and on Instagram. I post a lot of written reviews and cool pictures and unboxing reels over on IG, so make sure you say hi to me over there as well. I got some awesome episodes lined up. I went to this garage sale about 6 months ago, and this person had some old German board games, some of which were never even opened. I had never heard of any of these before, so I've just been slowly getting to them over the past 6 months. I've had to do a lot of translation work because there's just no content about these on the internet, but these are like the epitome of undiscovered games, and I am very excited to share some of these with you, so look for some really cool undiscovered stuff coming out in the next few episodes. Okay, enough rambling from me. Thanks so much for joining me today, and I will be back with another great undiscovered game in a couple weeks. We'll see you then.